There's an American general who said the greatest danger to peace is misunderstood words in the war room. And this is probably true. This is going to be is part of the apocalypse, and there are more than one definition of the apocalypse. People usually go, "Oh, it's the end of the world, end times," but another meaning that is longer than that one is that it's the revelation of knowledge. And at this current moment, there's more knowledge on YouTube than was ever available to any person who wanted to study something. They used to have to read books and go where the books were. And sometimes the books were banned or burned. So the, for example, the entire history of the Earth is now available on YouTube on a series called History of the Earth. So you could learn in 10 hours what would have taken a very brilliant genius probably 10 to 15 years to learn by reading books and collating knowledge. There's another thing called CATASTROPHISM, which is fairly new by Randall Carlson. This is the history of reoccurring disasters like solar flares, CMEs, gravitic events, planetary alignments that cause earthquakes and tsunamis. And Randall Carlson noticed this, and he went and got geologists to go and look through their core samples and found out there is a recurring disaster every 10,000 years and one every 20,000 years. And sometimes the 10 and 20s gang up at the same time, and you get what's called an end of civilization event. Not extinction level, just the end of civilization. This is why we have no history. And it's coming up next year, October 23rd. 2023, the 4 outer gas giants will go into alignment, and the Earth will be behind the Sun, and as it comes around, those 4 magnetic and gravitic forces will lock together and disturb the surface of the Earth. We've already had that. The big tsunami at Sumatra was the first warning of that. Plus, we're crossing the galactic plane. The solar system goes above and below the galactic plane on its way, on its 25,000-year circuit around the galaxy, and every time that happens, the sun goes into a micronova and burns up all the dust and crap that's in the solar system. And we get, whatever side is facing the sun when that happens gets a direct hit. And this is probably what happened to North Africa, where they find melted glass and blame it on the aliens having a nuclear war. But this is probably what happened to the Garden of Eden. Direct CME hit on Northern Africa. So on the way to Armageddon, which is the big war fought in the Middle East between Russia and Israel and Syria and the United States, which is coming up. Stay tuned. This is supposedly over. This is mankind's silliness. George Gurdjieff, esoteric teacher, said that mankind is a sleeping machine. He's a spiritual being who's incarnated, and carne is Italian for meat, into a primate platform to play a game, but he's asleep. He's forgotten where he came from, forgotten what he is. And this sleeping machine is subject to the vagaries of planetary influence of magnetism, gravity, and scalar waves that we don't have a good handle on yet. Smallest example is the full moon affecting disturbed people in mental asylums. It's quite well known. Well, the close approach of a planet causes a disturbance in the force. Let's call it that. And at this juncture, we have Jupiter's closest approach to the Earth since 1963, which is when we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, which is where Russia was trying to put nukes close to the United States, and the United States said, if you do that, we will nuke you. And now, 51 years later, we have the closest approach of Jupiter again. And we have Russia invading Europe and threatening to nuke everybody. Any connection? Probably not. Also, the antsiness and the willing of everyone to go to war is caused by the same planetary alignment. And the big one's coming up next year. The closer we get, the more crazy people will be. Now, if we had a civilization that taught this, we know this, it's all over the place in books and research and now videos, we could prepare for this event rather than trying to be tribal. Russia has no ports. They need a port. So they wanted Crimea, and the place they're after is, I think, 1/13 of the world's food supply in Ukraine. They want to add that to their business empire. China wants to add Taiwan back because Taiwan has the best chip manufacturing facilities in the world, and China, under the Uyghurs, has the rare earth metals to build batteries for electric cars. And they're genociding the Uyghurs because the Uyghurs wouldn't get off their farms. And they need to scrape them off the farms so they can strip mine the rare metals. The world forgetting that China used to be a non-communist entity, and then Mao Zedong brought communism from Russia, and they managed to take over the whole mainland, but they couldn't get Taiwan, and so Taiwan is the original China, which is why the U.S. sides with them. They're still keeping their agreements with China. So that war was never finalized. And Russia is stupid because, I will explain, Russia is a gigantic country with an unbelievable amount of resources of all kinds. They're so big. So, the British Empire, the big business, sent Lenin in a blacked out train to introduce socialism, to destroy Russia and keep it back, which has gone on for at least 70 years. I'm not sure how long it's been, but you guys got suckered with communism, and the whole point of it was to keep you from becoming a competitor to the British Empire. And now you're stuck with it. So now we have the stupid Russian Empire trying to steal country from Europe, as they've done before. In the when I was a child, I don't remember what the day it was. I had all these people come into our neighborhood from Czechoslovakia, and it says because the Russians came in with tanks and took over the country. Because without entrepreneurs, nothing happens. And in socialism, communism, you can't have entrepreneurs. Although they do now, and they call them oligarchs, and they have these same people in Ukraine, they call them oligarchs. Let's see. Intermittent power supply. Things we can expect to be happening. So the current craziness is socialism coming to America to destroy it. So we can have totalitarian communist socialism all around the world, which is brought on by the angst of the planets coming close to us. And people feel, George just says, when this happens, people's solution is to go and break other people's heads to release the tension. So we're the victims of celestial influence. And moving right along, for example, this is about energy. When I was a boy, everything was right. I used to get popular mechanics, and I was a science kid. To heat your home, you can use what's called heat exchanger by running pipes under the ground. The difference in temperature between the earth and the air can be used to create heat. On your roof, we didn't have solar panels then, but you could have, if you take a sheet of plastic and put it in a framework and fill it with water, you get pretty close to a parabolic shape. And the parabolic shape, if lined up with the arc of the sun going across the sky, will heat the water up, including if it's cloudy, even the infrared still comes through. So you have water on your roof, which is going to have gravity pressure that is pretty hot. It's probably too hot to have a shower or wash dishes with. So you can use that for hot water. If it's not quite hot water enough, you can have a little tiny heater just to take it over the edge. This is from early 61, 62, 63. The solar panels are only 1% effective. We can't use. They're so expensive. Well, don't do that. Use water. And the gigantic desert area outside of Los Angeles, where it's like 130, 40 degrees, this could be done with water, again, heating up to pretty close to steam temperature, or maybe even steam temperature, and to drive steam turbines to produce electricity. It's okay to spend $1 trillion on bombs to drop on your neighbors, but it's not okay to spend $1 trillion on electricity. I was involved with a company that was mining the white stuff that goes in pills, which is old single-cell animals that when the interior seas dried up, they drop down to ground level. This stuff's pretty pure, and it's an ingredient in cement, and the company wanted to mine this and take it to Las Vegas to build cement. And the environmental people said, well, you can't do that because there's a rare cactus that only grows there and that would destroy it, so you can't do that. So we hired a young couple, gave them a trailer and a Jeep and way too much money and said, go find these plants, dig them up safely and move them to another area. And then we took the mined calcium carbonate, I think it is, whatever's in pills, and got balloons from Canada to lift them up off the ground, the containers, and one tractor, and drove them, I think it was 11 miles to Vegas rather than 55 miles around by truck. Problems can be solved. Also, desalinization, it's so expensive and it's so energy rich, needed anyway. So, okay, let's not desalinate, but when the tides come in and out every day, as they have for the last billion years, let the tides come in and run turbines. And then when the tide goes out, let the water run out backwards and run turbines and store what you can overnight in batteries or hot rocks like they do in Africa. And all this stuff's been around for 50 years. And we're bemoaning the fact that we can't solve the problem. The problem was solved 50 years ago, 60 years ago. So it is not necessary to have World War III, and it's very inconvenient to have it now because at the tail end of the war, next year we'll go into the civilization ending cosmic catastrophe. And like the last time and the time before, to quote Liza Minnelli, there'll be ragtag groups of survivors in Western Australia, Chile, Iceland. So if you're listening to this, pass it on if you can. Apparently the statistics on if you complain to your congressman, woman, or child, it's counted as 1,300 people because they know that if one person gets so mad that they'll write a letter or make a phone call, there's 12,999 other people with the same opinion. So hit them with phone calls and letters, and it can be the same phone call, the same letter. It doesn't have to be different. They just count the statistics. And if 1,000 people complain through emails, they'll count it as 13,000 people complaining. No, 130,000. So you can get stuff done by talking to your congressman or to your any representative. Anything you do is multiplied by 13,000. So this is the answer to what can I do? It's just me. We'll make a phone call, and they thought that 13,000 people made phone calls. So this would make up for all your friends who won't listen to you and say you're a conspiracy theory and a tin hat person and a prepper. Make a phone call, and they'll think there's 13,000 preppers, tin hat folks. And these people are mostly concerned with getting reelected. They are not concerned with doing their job. So if you can make them afraid of being unelected, they'll do the right thing. And the window for doing this is very short. The midterm elections in the States are coming up very soon, and they might feel they need to push the war through before that so they can say, we're in a war, we can't have an election. And by the time that's done, there'll be no more democracy in the world. And if you haven't seen or heard of the Great Culling, aka the Georgia Guidestones, where they want to leave only 500 million people on the planet to be the slaves and servitors of the elite when they come out of their bunkers. These are the three words that I've been doing this since 2010. And in 2009 to 14, there was a lady, Dr. Rima, somebody or other, who was saying she treated one of the elites, and the elite person said, it's almost time for the Great Culling. And she said, oh, what's that? She said, oh, we're going to cull out the useless eaters. the doctor said, well, who are the useless eaters? And she said, anyone who taking more out of society than they give in. And that's an older philosophy from their 30s. Can't think of the name right now, but it's like you want to euthanize all the old and sick people for the good of the planet. But it's never the people who are proposing this. Eugenics. Bill Gates is a eugenicist. His father was a eugenicist involved in the early days of this. So beware that. Crazy's gone so far as in California, Newsom's trying to make it legal to abort a baby 1 month after it's been born. Where are the adults? This is why they'll be able to sell the Antichrist, because nobody's doing anything following the law. No one's going to jail. No one's being arrested. And if someone comes along and says, that's it, I'll handle all this, we're all going to go, finally, a real man or a woman shows up. It's always a woman who brings down an empire, so watch out. They'll buy it, and then, oh, there we go. Down the road to electronic slavery, transhumanism, and then the civilization ending event, and we start again throwing rocks at each other in the mouths of caves, where a good time was had by all. Nothing more tasty than saber-tooth steak.